opposing petitions seeking ex-gratia payment to families of deceased COVID patients, Centre has informed the Supreme Court that it is considering formulation of a similar financial compensation scheme. The top court has asked the Centre to ensure that deaths of all COVID patients are classified as COVID deaths, and all death certificates already issued should reflect that data to ensure that no bereaved family is denied the benefit of ex-gratia payment. Reserving its order on a batch of petitions seeking rupees 4 lakh as ex-gratia payment to family members of each deceased COVID patient, the top court asked the Centre to provide details of the amount of ex-gratia payments given by states to the next of kin of deceased COVID patients. Centre had earlier informed the Apex Court that there is already a statutory mechanism in place to report COVID deaths, with the guidelines to report having the force of law and a top court order from 2020 to back it. Centre had maintained that failure to report COVID deaths will make everyone responsible, including the certifying doctor, for penal consequences under Section 188 of the Indian Penal Code and the Contempt of Court Act. The affidavit told the court that the guidelines issued by the Office of Registrar General of India are being followed in totality to report cause of deaths to ensure correct classification of all COVID deaths. All deaths with COVID diagnosis, irrespective of any comorbidities, will have to be classified as deaths due to COVID. Exceptions to the rule could remain where there is a clear alternative cause of death like accidental trauma, poisoning, or acute myocardial infarction. In May 2021, the Office of Registrar General of India had issued guidelines to register death of a person within 21 days. Centre had submitted before the court that death audit is an administrative exercise being undertaken to identify gaps that contribute to patient deaths and intends to improve the quality of healthcare services by preventing or minimizing future deaths. With an annual allocation of over rupees 22,000 crores for ex-gratia disaster relief for all states and over 3.85 lakh deaths due to the pandemic, Centre had earlier claimed that giving rupees 4 lakh to each family with deceased COVID patients would exhaust these funds meant for health and welfare schemes. Centre's affidavit pointed out that the pandemic is still continuing with more deaths taking place every day. Hence, schemes for financial assistance during natural disasters cannot be replicated during a pandemic. Petitions in the top court have sought ex-gratia compensation of rupees 4 lakh to the families of deceased COVID patients, including those who died due to post-COVID complications like mucormycosis. Citing Section 12 of the Disaster Management Act, which allows for ex-gratia relief payment to disaster victims, the petitions want a uniform compensation policy in view of varying amounts being given by different states. It remains to be seen whether the Apex Court is going to pass orders in this regard or is going to rely upon the scheme which has been given by the Union government.